Emergency podcast number 3 is be careful for those who are not paying attention. In other words, we're about to go into what's called the Wile E. Coyote moment. Everybody's running along and says, oh, don't worry, the Fed's got my back, the economy is fine. I love this guy Biden, and America's the greatest, and the economy is safe. And when people crash, when this thing crashes, and it's coming soon, it's the people that are not prepared, the people who are not watching this emergency podcast number 3, haven't watched number 2 or number 1, are the ones you're going to have to be afraid of. Be very, very afraid of those who are sound asleep at this moment, because when they wake up, they're going to wonder, what happened? So I'll just tell you a quick story. I went to flight school, to fly these things in Vietnam, and they wanted to prepare us for the worst. So how did they prepare you for the worst? Well, they make it the worst. So what they did is they take us out into the Gulf of Mexico, off of Pensacola Beach. They simulate a parachute crashing into the ocean, so it's freezing weather. I think the temperature was -3 degrees or something. We hang out the back, we drop into the water, we got to unhook, then we paddle ashore, little rubber ducks, there's like 7 of us in a group, and we go ashore into the swamps of Florida, and our job is to survive. So it's a simulate crashing in Vietnam or the jungles, and then we had to figure out how to survive. So everything is like a little Boy Scout camp. The first day, everybody's happy, we're chugging along. This is easy. Day 2 gets a little bit more serious. Then day 3, we're hungry. And this is what I'm talking about. It took us till day 3 to turn into animals. We went primal. I was ready to kill the guy next to me. We're starving to death. We're hungry. These guys are chasing us with guns, blanks, of course, but we're running. I'm eating palmetto. Just ripping palms apart, trying to get a little piece of nourishment, starving to death. We finally shot a raccoon, and there was 7 men, 25-year-old men, and 1 little raccoon. And pretty soon we were growling. We were just like a bunch of wolves, and the side of me came out of me that terrified me. It's what happens when you go primal after day 3. So that's what emergency broadcast number 3 is about. What happens when your neighbor goes primal, because they finally wake up and said, I should have listened to emergency number 1, emergency number 2, emergency number 3. So I want to thank my friend Andy Sheckman for keeping me informed personally about what's going on in the world. And so, Andy, welcome back to Emergency Podcast number 3. I just said that. That's this book here, The Communist Manifesto, Centralized Banking, that they control the whole economy. It's run by the academic elite, and you and I are screwed. So that's number 1. It's Emergency Podcast number 1. Please understand that. Question is your money safe in a bank? Or is it going to be stolen by the banks, called a bail-in?
Right, correct.
And it's about what Japan and Mexico, if and when they join the BRICS, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And the reason I think that's probably the best I've ever done so far with Andy was his financial literacy. Do you speak the language of the banks? And that's the most important thing right now. Do you speak the same language the banks are speaking? So what was financial emergency podcast number 2? What's the significance of Japan and Mexico contemplating or already joining the BRICS? So please listen to emergency podcast number 2, because you'll learn some languaging there. There's a lot to learn, we didn't go over this, but Triffin's dilemma and Gresham's laws and all this stuff. America has been violating all of these laws of money for all of these years, and the world says we've had enough of this. So they're joining the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And what Andy's pointing out, that means 70% of the world's population that used to use the dollar are going to take this and say, we don't want it anymore. And so there's going to be quadrillions of dollars coming back. And the ramifications of that are possibly, and I hope it doesn't happen, but it's called hyperinflation. That this thing goes to trash. This becomes toilet paper, this little dollar here, because there's so much of it out there. And when 70% of the world's population says, we're not going to use this anymore, aloha, what does that mean to the world? Which brings up number 3.
Yes,
and it's the Wile E. Coyote moment. And again, I'm not worried about you guys who listen to 1, 2, and now 3. But what about the person who's fat, dumb, and happy and thinks, oh, don't worry, the Fed's got our back, the economy is the best, we'll be fine. You guys are just, you're Chicken Little, saying the sky is falling. It's not falling. It's going to be fine. What happens when your neighbor comes knocking on your door because their kids are starving?
Mm-hmm.
You think they're going to be wanting your food too and your money? And that's why I told the story of the U.S. Marine Corps and then the U.S. Navy throwing us out in the woods. On day 3, we went primal. That little raccoon, I still remember it, Andy. There was 7 men, 25-year-old men. You know how much we can eat at 25. And this little raccoon was smaller than a chicken. And I could hear myself growling. You know how much I want that piece. You can't have that piece. You can't. And then there was another group of 7 men came. They said, you get it? No, leave us alone. So there was another group coming in and said, and so they were so desperate, this other group of 7, we sold them the bones. I still remember that. I said, that's a pretty good deal. We got $20 for these bones here. They were chewing away on it. The point is, we're only 3 days away from primal. And what happens when your neighbor comes to visit you because their kids are starving? So that's the Wile E. Coyote moment. So what do you see possibly happen? Well, can we show this clip here? Or you want to talk about what the possibility is? Or how far away are we from the Wile E. Coyote Nixon moment? Took this off the gold standard. They had to back it up with something. So 74, Nixon and his protege Kissinger, they went to Saudi Arabia. Says, if you make this the petrodollar, so they went from a gold dollar to a petrodollar. And so they gave the dollar immense power throughout the world because everybody had to take this stuff here. And so what happened when China enters the scene and all this stuff is going on, what Andy's talking about, this is going to come back on us now.
That's correct.
Can we show this video of this guy? Then you can interpret, because I watched it twice. I didn't quite get it. So you can explain it better than I can. So let's show this little video of Mr. Bhutto or something from Kenya saying that we're not going to trade in this anymore. We fly helicopters out there to go hunting. And this guy says, that's a Chinese compound there. And there was like this college campus filled with Chinese people building infrastructure. Then we were in, got a quick name of the country, but they were putting in fiber optic cable for the country. The Chinese were. They're doing all the things that makes a country richer, but they're countries with resources. Do you know what I mean? With stuff that the Chinese want to use. So we send our cheap ass dollars, these things here. We buy their gold, silver, oil, copper. We pay them with fake money. But the Chinese go there and actually make their economy stronger via infrastructure. And I've seen these large campuses of Chinese people. I'm going, holy mackerel, this is the last 10 years. That's what Andy's talking about here. So when you see it, you go, what the hell is the U.S. steal a nation's wealth? You could go to the Congo and take out all the stuff, the diamonds, the oil. You could go to oil-producing countries, steal their wealth with fake money. And what Andy is saying, it's over.
And I think
right?
the common thread in all of these unions and all of this infrastructure and all of this cooperation is the drive toward mutual settlements in national currencies between Asia, Africa, and Latin America. For all practical purposes, Putin said, look, we're endorsing the role right now of the Chinese yuan as the new trade currency, while the complex discussions of our new BRICS currency or our new Shanghai Cooperation Organization settlement currency backed by gold and other commodities proceed. They went in there and said, we want to use the yuan right now in order to bridge the gap between the new currencies that we will issue as a united front that will be pegged and backed to commodities. The de-dollarization, the lack of demand for the dollar, is going to increase inflation exponentially. And that's not even talking about when the switch is flipped and they all dump things at the same time. And if you look at what the two of them said as they parted ways just the other day in their meeting, Xi Jinping says to Putin, and they have this on camera, he says, now there are changes that haven't happened in 100 years. And when we are together, we drive these changes. Putin says, I agree. You are witnessing 100-year change. And when the switch flips, all of these countries have joined together in harmony, in mutual beneficial trade, in a united front against the hegemony and hypocrisy that they perceive from the West, and they flip the switch and they dump dollars globally. It will be a religious experience in this country. If you are not prepared, you're dead.
And that's what that guy from Kenya was saying. Yes. You better go to a hospital now.
Yes, that's exactly what he was saying. And
anyway, well, I'm going to get to a solution right now. Again, I would strongly suggest people watch Emergency Podcast #1. I think #2 is the most for financial literacy. Do you speak the language of the banks? And then #3 is that it's the people who are not watching these 3 videos that you have to worry about. And that's why I sit at my desk with my little Dirty Harry pistol here, and because I'm a Marine. I've been in my own homes. I've had people break in Hawaii. And when people are desperate people do. So that's why, would you explain what Miles Franklin does? But, to be perfect for disclosure, I do buy from Andy Schechtman. I make no commissions. I am a consumer just way because I like the education I get along with the products I buy. So this here is a silver coin. This is about $35 today. I mean, everybody in the world can afford $35, but they'd rather hang on to this toilet paper here. And this is a gold coin. And this is March 2023, $30. This is about 2,000 something. And I think this is the biggest bargain of all, is that silver, because silver is consumed in everything. All the solar panels, these are Tomahawk missile, got 30 pounds of silver in it. It goes boom in the desert. EV, electronic vehicles, are going to burn this stuff here. And everybody can afford $35. But will they do it? No. They're going to hang on to this garbage here. Let me say one more thing. There's a thing called Triffin's Dilemma. Triffin's Dilemma meant that for the U.S. to be the world's money, the reserve currency in 1944, they had to print extra of this. So the whole world had this in their banks all over the world. They have more of this stuff than any other product in history. This is toilet paper. And what that guy was saying from Kenya is when this stuff starts coming back in, it's just not how much they printed. It's how much they've had in storage, because they had to be able to buy oil in this stuff here. So what's going to come back is a tidal wave of this toilet paper upon America. And this little $35 coin here, I don't like to make predictions, but I'd rather have this than this here. And it's really tough to get people to say, no, I'd rather have toilet paper. It makes no sense to me. So please explain what Miles Franklin does. And I am, for full disclosure, I am a customer of Andy, but I am a customer of him because I like what he teaches me about money.